Princess Zara stood at the big window of her spaceship. She looked down at the blue planet below. Earth looked so small and simple from up here. Her people called it a backward world full of primitive creatures. The war had been going on for 3 years. Her father's empire and the humans had been fighting over trading routes and mining rights. Thousands of ships had been destroyed. Millions of lives had been lost. Both sides were tired of the fighting. Then the peace talks began. The human leaders offered something strange, a marriage between their people and hers. They said it would show that both sides wanted real peace. Zara's father, Emperor Velkanos, thought it was a good idea. He chose Zara to be the bride. "You will marry one of their males," her father had told her. "It will end this war and bring honor to our family." Zara had agreed because she loved her people, but she expected to marry some rough warrior or cruel politician. Humans were known to be violent and simple-minded. They barely had any real technology. Their ships moved slowly, their weapons were weak. Their minds were even weaker. The wedding would happen on a neutral space station called Harmony's Edge. It floated between human and Velthari space. Both sides had built it together as a sign of their desire for peace. Zara's ship docked at the station 3 days before the wedding. She wore her best royal clothes, a flowing purple dress that changed colors in the light. Her advisors walked beside her. They whispered about how this marriage would help their empire. "Remember, Princess," said her chief advisor, Commander Kalon. "Humans are simple creatures. They think slowly. They understand very little. Be patient with whichever male they have chosen for you." Zara nodded. She had studied human culture. They seemed to care only about basic things like food and fighting. Their art was crude. Their music was loud and simple. Their technology was hundreds of years behind hers. The meeting hall was large and bright. Human and Velthari flags hung from the ceiling. Diplomats from both sides sat at long tables. The air smelled of different foods from different worlds. Admiral Lisa Park represented the humans. She was a tall woman with gray hair and serious eyes. She wore a dark blue uniform covered in medals. When she saw Zara, she stood up and bowed slightly. "Your Highness," Admiral Park said, "we are honored by your presence. Let me introduce your future husband." Zara straightened her shoulders. She was ready to meet some brutal human warrior. Instead, a simple man stepped forward. He was average height with brown hair and kind blue eyes. He wore plain clothes, just a white shirt and dark pants. He looked like a farmer or a worker, not a diplomat or soldier. "This is Jake Miller," Admiral Park said. "He comes from our agricultural colonies near Centauri Prime." Jake stepped forward and gave a small bow. His movements were gentle and careful. "Hello, Princess Zara," he said. His voice was quiet and calm. "I'm honored to meet you." Zara stared at him. This was her future husband? This simple farmer? He looked so ordinary, so harmless. She had expected someone important, a general or a prince. Instead, they had given her a peasant. I am pleased to meet you as well," she said, trying to hide her disappointment. Jake smiled. It was a warm, honest smile. "I brought you something," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flower. It was white with yellow in the center. "I grew it myself. I thought you might like it." The flower was pretty, but so simple. On her world, they had flowers that sang and changed colors and smelled like music. This human flower just was plain and basic. "Thank you," she said, taking the flower. "It's very nice." Over the next 2 days, Zara spent time with Jake. They walked around the station together. They ate meals together. They talked about their different worlds. Jake asked many questions about her people and their technology. But his questions were so basic. He wanted to know how their ships moved through space. He asked about their weapons and their computers. He seemed amazed by the simplest things. "Your people must be very smart," he would say. "I don't understand how this works, but it's wonderful." Zara found his wonder almost childlike. He would stare at their holographic displays like a young child seeing magic for the first time. He would touch their control panels very carefully, as if he was afraid to break them. Jake also carried a small notebook with him. He was always drawing in it. When Zara asked to see his drawings, he showed her pictures of flowers and trees and landscapes. The drawings were simple but pretty. They reminded her of the art that children made. "I like to draw things," Jake explained. "It helps me remember beautiful moments." During their walks, Jake told her about his life on the farming colony. He talked about growing food and taking care of animals. He described the simple houses where people lived and the small communities where everyone knew each other. "It sounds peaceful," Zara said. "It is," Jake replied. "But sometimes peace isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight for something bigger than yourself." That was the only time he sounded serious. Most of the time he seemed happy and content with simple things. The wedding ceremony was held in the main hall of the station. Representatives from both governments watched. Cameras recorded everything to broadcast to both human and Velthari worlds. Zara wore a traditional Velthari wedding dress made of silver fabric that moved like liquid. Jake wore a simple black suit. They stood together under an arch of flowers from both their worlds. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows in both languages. Jake's voice was steady as he promised to honor her and her people. Zara promised the same, though she still wondered what kind of marriage this would be. After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Human and Velthari food was served. Musicians from both cultures played together. Diplomats made speeches about peace and friendship. Zara watched Jake during the party. He was polite to everyone. He listened more than he talked. When people asked him questions, he gave simple, honest answers. He seemed genuinely interested in learning about her people. But Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this marriage was just for show. How could a simple farmer understand the complex politics of two different worlds? How could he help build a lasting peace between their peoples? Late that night, after the party ended, Zara and Jake stood alone on the observation deck. Through the big windows they could see stars and distant planets. "Are you happy?" Jake asked quietly. Zara thought about the question. "I am doing my duty," she said. "That is what matters." Jake nodded. "I understand. Sometimes duty is the most important thing." He paused. "But I hope someday you might be happy too." His words were kind, but they made Zara feel sad. This gentle farmer seemed nice enough, but how could he understand the weight of responsibility she carried? How could someone so simple help her lead two civilizations toward peace? As she looked at the stars, Zara made a silent promise. She would do her best to make this marriage work, for her people, for peace. Even if her husband was just a simple man who drew flowers and grew food, she had no idea how wrong she was about Jake Miller. She had no idea that behind his simple smile and gentle questions lay one of the most brilliant minds in human space. And she had no idea that his little notebook contained far more than innocent drawings of flowers and trees. The war was about to take a very dangerous turn, and the simple farmer she had married was about to become the most important person in two galaxies. 3 months had passed since the wedding. Zara and Jake now lived together on her flagship, the Star of Velthar. It was a massive ship with crystal towers and floating gardens. Jake seemed amazed by everything on the ship. He would walk through the corridors with wide eyes, looking at the walls that showed moving pictures of space. The war had gotten worse. A new enemy had appeared, the Kreshtar Dominion. They were a cruel race that wanted to destroy both humans and Velthari. Their ships were fast and deadly. They attacked without warning and showed no mercy. Jake attended the daily war meetings with Zara. He sat quietly in the corner while generals and admirals discussed battle plans. He never spoke during these meetings. He just listened and drew. In his notebook, Zara thought he was probably bored. The military talk must be too complex for a simple farmer. But she noticed that he drew more during the serious discussions. His pencil moved quickly across the pages. One day, Admiral Park visited their ship. She brought bad news. "We lost 3 supply convoys this week," she told the War Council. "The Kreshtar keep finding our routes. We can't figure out how they know where our ships will be." General Kane Bishop, Zara's military commander, studied the star charts. We need new routes, but every path we choose seems obvious to them. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the holographic map showing safe routes through space. All the good paths were marked in red, meaning the enemy controlled them. Jake looked up from his notebook. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Could I suggest something?" The generals and admirals turned to look at him. Some of them smiled in a way that wasn't very nice. They thought it was cute that the simple human wanted to help with military planning. "Of course," Admiral Park said kindly. "What do you think, Jake?" Jake stood up and walked to the map. He pointed to a route that went through an asteroid field. "What about this way? It looks longer, but maybe safer." General Bishop shook his head. "That route takes 3 days longer. We would lose too much time. And the asteroids make it dangerous," added Admiral Park. "Our ships could be damaged." Jake nodded. "I understand. I just thought sometimes the longer path is better." He sat back down and continued drawing. Zara felt embarrassed for her husband. His suggestion was so simple. Of course, the military leaders had already thought of obvious routes like that, but Admiral Park was a kind woman. "Actually," she said, "maybe we should look at it again. Jake, can you show me exactly which path you mean?" Jake returned to the map. He traced a route with his finger. It went around the asteroid field, then through a small nebula, then curved back toward the destination. The ships could go this way, then here. Admiral Park studied the route carefully. Her eyes grew wide. This is brilliant," she whispered. Everyone leaned forward to look. "The route uses the asteroid field's gravity to speed up the ships," Admiral Park explained. "And the nebula would hide them from enemy sensors. They would actually arrive faster than the direct route." General Bishop ran the calculations on his computer. "She's right. This path would save 8 hours and make the ships invisible for most of the journey." All eyes turned to Jake. He looked confused by their excitement. "I just thought it looked like a nice way to travel," he said. The new route worked perfectly. 6 supply convoys used Jake's path over the next 2 weeks. All of them arrived safely and ahead of schedule. The Kreshtar never found them. Zara began to pay more attention to her husband. She noticed that he asked strange questions during their daily walks. "Do the Kreshtar always attack at the same time of day?" he would ask. "How do they choose which planets to attack first? Do they ever retreat? Or do they always fight until the end?" Zara thought these were just the curious questions of someone trying to understand the war. But something about the way Jake asked them seemed different. His blue eyes looked very focused when he listened to her answers. Jake also spent time talking to the ship's crew. He would sit with the engineers and ask them about the ship's weapons. He would chat with the pilots about flying through different types of space. He would listen to the communications officers talking about enemy radio signals. To everyone else, Jake seemed like a friendly man who was interested in learning. But Zara started to notice patterns. Jake's questions were always about specific details. He wanted to know exact numbers and precise procedures. One evening, Zara found Jake on the observation deck. He was drawing in his notebook while looking out at the stars. She sat beside him. "What are you drawing tonight?" she asked. Jake showed her the page. It was a picture of their wedding day. 2 simple stick figures stood under an arch. Around them were small drawings of stars and spaceships. "It's very sweet," Zara said. "You draw our wedding like a child would." Jake smiled. "Sometimes simple pictures show the most important things." Zara looked more closely at the drawing. The stick figures were cute, but something seemed odd about the stars and ships around them. They were positioned in very specific places. The spacing looked almost mathematical. "Jake," she said slowly, "why did you put the ships in those exact positions?" "They just looked right there," Jake said. "Balanced, you know." But as Zara studied the drawing, she realized the ship positions weren't random at all. They formed a perfect tactical formation, one that could surround and capture an enemy fleet. Jake, this formation, do you know what it could do in a real battle? Jake looked at his drawing as if seeing it for the first time. I don't know much about battles, I just drew what looked pretty. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Jake's drawing and his questions and his route suggestions. Was it all just coincidence? Could a simple farmer really understand military tactics without knowing it? The next morning brought terrible news. The Kreshtar had launched a massive attack on the human colony of New Boston. 50,000 people lived there. The human defense fleet was too far away to help in time. In the emergency meeting, Admiral Park looked desperate. We could send our ships, but we would arrive too late. The colony will be destroyed before we get there. General Bishop studied the tactical display. There's no way to reach them in time. The distance is too great. Jake raised his hand quietly. Could I ask a question? Admiral Park nodded, though she looked impatient. What if the ships didn't go straight there? Jake asked. What if they went around? Around what? General Bishop asked. Jake walked to the display. He pointed to a gravity well near New Boston. Could the ships use this to go faster? Like a slingshot? The room went quiet. Admiral Park ran calculations on her computer. Her face went pale. This could work, she whispered. If we time it exactly right, the gravity assist would get us there in half the time. But the timing has to be perfect, General Bishop said. The ships would have to arrive at the gravity well at exactly the right moment and at exactly the right angle. Jake nodded. Maybe someone could draw a picture of where each ship should go. That might help with the timing. Admiral Park stared at him. Jake, could you draw that picture? I could try, Jake said. I'm not very good at space battles, but I could draw where the ships might look pretty. Jake spent the next hour drawing in his notebook. He made what looked like a child's picture of ships flying around a star. But when Admiral Park saw it, she gasped. This is the most sophisticated gravitational slingshot maneuver I've ever seen, she said. The timing, the angles, the formation, it's all perfect. The human fleet followed Jake's drawing exactly. They reached New Boston just in time to save the colony. The Kreshtar ships were caught completely by surprise. What should have been a massacre became a human victory. After the battle, Zara confronted Jake in their private quarters. Jake, she said, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Jake looked up from his notebook. Of course. What do you want to know? Are you really just a farmer? Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled that same gentle smile. I grew up on a farming colony. I know how to plant seeds and harvest crops. I can take care of animals and fix farm equipment. He paused. But people can be more than one thing, can't they? What else are you? Zara asked. I'm someone who likes to solve puzzles, Jake said. And I'm someone who wants peace between our peoples. It wasn't a complete answer, but it was more than Jake had ever revealed before. Zara realized that her simple farmer husband was full of secrets, and those secrets might be the key to winning the war. As she watched Jake return to his drawing, Zara wondered what other surprises her husband was hiding. The war was getting worse every day. Both sides were losing ships and people. They needed something new, something the enemy wouldn't expect. Maybe that something was sitting right beside her, drawing pictures that looked like a child's art, but contained the wisdom of a master strategist. Jake finished his drawing and showed it to her. It looked like flowers in a garden. But Zara was beginning to understand that with Jake, nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. The War Council meeting was the most important one they had ever held. Leaders from both the human and Velthari fleets sat around a huge table. The holographic display in the center showed something that made everyone's face look worried. The Kreshtar had built a planet crusher. Admiral Park stood up and pointed at the massive object on the screen. This weapon is the size of a small moon, she said. It can destroy entire planets in minutes. Our scouts report that it's moving toward the Centauri system. Emperor Velcano spoke through the communication link from his home world. His voice was grave. If they destroy Centauri Prime, they will kill 50 billion humans, and they will control the main trade route between our peoples. General Bishop pulled up tactical reports. We've tried everything. Direct attacks don't work. The Planet Crusher has shields that can stop our strongest weapons. We've lost 12 fleets trying to destroy it. What about evacuating the planet? Asked Captain Ryan Bell, one of the human commanders. Impossible, Admiral Park replied. There are too many people. We don't have enough ships to move 50 billion humans in time. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the display showing the Planet Crusher moving slowly but steadily toward Centauri Prime. In 3 days, it would arrive. In 3 days, 50 billion people would die. Jake sat in his usual corner drawing in his notebook. Zara watched him work. His pencil moved quickly across the page, creating what looked like another one of his simple pictures. We need a miracle, General Bishop said quietly. Miracles don't exist in war, replied Admiral Park. Only tactics and luck. Emperor Velkanos's voice came through the speakers again. Perhaps we should prepare for evacuation, save as many as we can. No, Admiral, Park said firmly. There has to be a way, we just haven't found it yet. The meeting continued for hours. Generals and admirals suggested plan after plan. None of them would work. The Planet Crusher was too big, too well defended, too powerful. As the arguments grew louder, Zara noticed that Jake had stopped drawing. He was staring at his notebook with a strange expression on his face. His eyes were very focused, like he was solving a difficult puzzle. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Jake said suddenly. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. Admiral Park spoke gently. What do you mean, Jake? Jake stood up and walked to the display. Everyone is trying to destroy the Planet Crusher. But what if we don't destroy it? What if we use it instead? General Bishop frowned. Use it? How could we use an enemy weapon? The Planet Crusher is very big and very heavy, Jake said. It has huge engines to make it move. What if we could make it go somewhere else instead of Centauri Prime? The weapon is controlled by the Kreshtar, Captain Bell pointed out. We can't just tell them to change direction. Jake nodded. But what controls the Planet Crusher? What makes it move where the Kreshtar want it to go? Admiral Park thought about it. Gravity wells. They use gravitational fields to steer something that large through space. Right, Jake said. So what if we change the gravity around it? The military leaders looked confused. Zara could see they didn't understand what Jake was suggesting. Jake, Admiral Park said carefully, how would we change gravity? We don't have that kind of technology. Jake smiled and opened his notebook. We don't need to change gravity. We just need to add more of it in the right places. He showed them his latest drawing. It looked like their wedding day again. The same stick figures under an arch, surrounded by stars and ships. But this time Zara looked at it more carefully. This isn't just a wedding picture, she whispered. Admiral Park leaned forward to study the drawing. Her eyes grew wide. Jake, what exactly are you showing us here? The arch isn't really an arch, Jake explained. It's a gravitational slingshot. The stick figures are the Planet Crusher. And these little stars and ships. He pointed to the decorations around the edge of the drawing. They show where our fleets need to be. Captain Bell looked confused. I don't understand. Admiral Park was running calculations on her computer. Her hands were shaking. I think I do. Jake, are you suggesting that we use multiple gravity wells to redirect the Planet Crusher's course? The Planet Crusher is following a straight line to Centauri Prime, Jake said. But what if we put ships with gravity generators in exactly the right places? The Planet Crusher would have to follow a different path. Like water flowing around rocks in a stream, Zara said, beginning to understand. Exactly. Jake smiled at his wife. And if we put the rocks in the right places, we can make the water flow where we want it to go. General Bishop was studying the drawing with a shocked expression. This is incredible. You're not just talking about redirecting the Planet Crusher. You're talking about turning it into a weapon against the Kreshtar fleet. Jake nodded. The Planet Crusher has enough power to destroy planets. If we could aim it at their main battle fleet instead, it would end the war, Admiral Park whispered. But Captain Bell shook his head. This plan is impossible. The timing would have to be perfect across dozens of star systems. We would need thousands of ships to create the gravity wells, and if we make even one small mistake, the planet crusher destroys Centauri Prime anyway, finished General Bishop. Jake opened his notebook to another page. This one showed what looked like a complex flower with many petals. Each petal had tiny numbers and symbols written inside it. I think I worked out the timing, Jake said quietly, and the ship positions, and the backup plans if something goes wrong. Admiral Park stared at the flower drawing. As she studied it, her face went from confused to amazed to frightened. Jake, she said slowly, this isn't just a battle plan. This is the most complex military operation ever attempted. You've calculated movements for how many ships? About 3,000, Jake said, from both our fleets. And you've accounted for gravitational interference from 17 different star systems? Yes. And you have backup plans for every possible enemy response? I tried to think of everything they might do. The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at Jake as if they were seeing him for the first time. Emperor Velkanos spoke through the communication link. Young human, how long did it take you to create this plan? I started thinking about it when the planet crusher was first reported, Jake said. About 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks, the Emperor repeated. You created a plan this complex in 2 weeks? Jake looked embarrassed. I know it's not very good. I'm sure real military strategists could do much better. Admiral Park laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Jake, this plan is so advanced that our best computers would need months to verify all the calculations. How did you do this in your head? I just see patterns, Jake said. Like when I'm farming, you have to think about weather and soil and water and timing. Everything affects everything else. Space battles are similar, just bigger. Zara stood up and walked to her husband. She looked at his drawing again. The simple flower was actually a masterpiece of strategic planning. Every petal represented a different part of the operation. Every number showed exact timing and positioning. Jake, she said, who are you really? Before he could answer, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. A communication officer rushed into the room. Admiral Park, General Bishop, the Crescitar fleet is moving faster than expected. The planet crusher will reach Centauri Prime in 2 days, not 3. Admiral Park looked at Jake's plan again. Can we implement this in 2 days? Jake studied his drawing. We would have to start moving ships immediately, and everyone would have to trust the plan completely. There won't be time to double-check the calculations. If we're wrong, 50 billion people die, General Bishop said. If we do nothing, 50 billion people die anyway, Admiral Park replied. Emperor Velkanos made the decision. We will follow the humans' plan. Send orders to all fleets immediately. As military commanders rushed out to prepare their ships, Zara stayed behind with Jake. They were alone in the war room, standing next to the holographic display that showed the planet crusher moving toward Centauri Prime. Jake, Zara said, before this begins, I need to know the truth. Are you really just a farmer who sees patterns? Or are you something else? Jake looked at her with those kind blue eyes. But for the first time, Zara saw something deeper behind them, something sharp and calculating and incredibly intelligent. I am someone who wants to save people, Jake said, and I'm someone who's very good at solving impossible puzzles. He closed his notebook and held it against his chest. The plan will work, Zara, I promise you that, but it's going to be the most dangerous 2 days of our lives. Outside the windows, ships from both fleets were already moving into position. The most complex military operation in galactic history was about to begin, and it was all based on drawings that looked like flowers and wedding pictures. Zara realized that she had never really known her husband at all. But as she watched him study the tactical displays with those sharp, focused eyes, she began to understand that she had married someone extraordinary. The simple farmer was about to save 50 billion lives, if his impossible plan worked. The next 2 days were like nothing anyone had ever experienced. Ships from 17 different star systems moved into position according to Jake's plan. Every ship had to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Admiral Park had set up a command center on Zara's flagship. Dozens of screens showed ship positions across multiple systems. Communication officers worked day and night, sending orders to fleet commanders. Jake sat at a small table in the center of all this activity. His notebook was open in front of him. As reports came in from different fleets, he would make tiny changes to his drawings. A small mark here, a number adjustment there. The human Fifth Fleet is running 3 minutes behind schedule, reported Captain Bell. Jake looked at his flower drawing and made a small calculation. Tell them to increase speed by 2%. That will put them back on time. The Velthari, ships near the Proxima system, are having trouble with gravitational interference, called another officer. Jake flipped to a different page in his notebook. They need to adjust their formation. Move ships 7 and 12 closer together. That will balance the gravity field. Zara watched her husband work. He seemed calm and relaxed, even though thousands of ships depended on his decisions. When military officers asked him questions, he would simply look at his drawings and give clear, precise answers. But Admiral Park was getting more worried as time passed. Jake, she said, what if the Kreshtar notice what we're doing? What if they change the planet Crusher's course? They won't, Jake said confidently. How can you be sure? Jake showed her another drawing. This one looked like a simple map of the local star systems. The Kreshtar think they're very smart. They believe their plan is perfect. They won't change course unless something forces them to. But they must see our ships moving into position. They see ships moving, Jake agreed. But they think we're trying to evacuate Centauri Prime, or preparing for a final desperate battle. They don't realize we're creating a trap. General Bishop joined the conversation. Jake, I've been studying your plan for 2 days. There's something I don't understand. How did you learn to think like this kind of strategic planning? It's beyond anything we teach in our military academies. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he looked up from his notebook. Can I tell you about my home? Of course. I grew up on a farming colony called Green Valley. It was a small place, only about 10,000 people. But we grew food for 20 different worlds. The logistics were incredibly complex. Admiral Park frowned. Logistics? Think about it, Jake said. We had to grow exactly the right crops at exactly the right times. We had to know which worlds needed what food and when they needed it. We had to coordinate transport ships from dozens of different companies. And we had to do all of this while dealing with weather, equipment failures, and changing market demands. Zara began to understand. You're saying that farming taught you strategy? Large-scale farming is strategy, Jake replied. You have to think about hundreds of variables at once. You have to plan months or years ahead, and if you make a mistake, people go hungry. But this is different, General Bishop insisted. This is military tactics. Jake smiled. Is it? We're moving ships instead of cargo vessels. We're dealing with enemy fleets instead of weather patterns. But the basic principles are the same. Coordinate complex systems to achieve a specific goal at a specific time. Captain Bell shook his head. You make it sound simple. Most things are simple if you break them down into smaller pieces, Jake said. The hard part is seeing how all the pieces fit together. As the first day ended, reports came in from across the galaxy. All fleets were in position. The gravity generators were working perfectly. The planet Crusher was following exactly the Yaoi path Jake had predicted. But on the second day, problems began. Admiral Park called a communication officer. The Kreshtar have sent escort ships to protect the planet Crusher. 50 heavy cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace. Everyone turned to look at Jake. This wasn't part of the plan. If enemy ships interfered with the gravity fields, the whole operation would fail. Jake studied his notebook for several minutes. Then he began drawing a new picture. This one showing the escort ships as tiny dots around the planet Crusher. It's okay, he said finally. Actually, this helps us. How does 50 enemy warships help us? Admiral Park asked. The escort ships will try to stay close to the planet Crusher, Jake explained. That means they'll follow the same gravitational path we've created. When the planet crusher changes course, the escort ships will be pulled along with it. Pulled? Into the trap, Zara whispered. Exactly. Instead of just destroying the planet crusher, we'll eliminate their escort fleet too. General Bishop ran calculations on his computer. Jake's right. The escort ships will actually make the gravitational redirection more effective. They're adding their own mass to the system. But the real test came 6 hours before the operation was supposed to begin. A Kreshtar admiral named Vexthor sent a message to all human and Velthari fleets. "Foolish insects," the message said. "We know you are trying to evacuate your people. It will not save them. Our planet crusher cannot be stopped. Centauri Prime will burn, and your evacuation fleets will burn with it." Admiral Park looked worried. "They're threatening to attack our ships before the planet crusher reaches Centauri Prime." Jake looked at his drawings again. Then he smiled. "This is perfect." "Perfect? How is this perfect?" "Admiral Vexthor just told us exactly what we needed to know. The Kreshtar still think we're evacuating. They have no idea we're setting a trap. And if they attack our evacuation fleets, they'll move their ships into exactly the positions we need them to be in." Jake opened his notebook to a page that showed what looked like a child's drawing of a spider web. "I was hoping they would do something like this." Admiral Park stared at the spider web drawing. "Jake, this isn't your main plan, is it? This is a backup plan." "It's backup plan number 7, Jake said. "I thought there was about a 30% chance they would try to attack our fleets early." "You have 7 backup plans?" 12, actually, but I don't think we'll need most of them." As the final hours approached, Zara found herself amazed by her husband's calm confidence. Military officers were stressed and worried, but Jake seemed completely relaxed. He even took time to draw a picture of the view from their ship's windows. "Aren't you nervous?" Zara asked him. "No," Jake said. "The mathematics are correct. All the variables are accounted for. The plan will work." "But what if something unexpected happens?" Jake showed her his notebook. "I've thought of 347 different things that could go wrong. I have plans for all of them." 347? Well, 348 now. I just thought of another one. He made a small note in the margin of one of his drawings. Finally, the moment arrived. On screens throughout the command center, they could see the planet crusher approaching the gravitational field created by their ships. It was enormous, larger than most moons. Its surface was covered in weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "Gravitational redirection begins in 30 seconds, reported Captain Bell. Jake closed his notebook. "Remember, everyone needs to follow the timing exactly. No early moves, no late moves." 10 seconds, called Captain Bell. The command center fell silent. Everyone stared at the main screen showing the planet crusher. "Now," whispered Jake. Across 17 star systems, gravity generators activated simultaneously. Thousands of ships created new gravitational fields that pulled and pushed at the massive planet crusher. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The planet crusher continued on its original course toward Centauri Prime. Then, slowly, its path began to curve. "It's working," Admiral Park breathed. The planet crusher was no longer heading toward Centauri Prime. Jake's gravity trap was pulling it toward the main Kreshtar battle fleet instead. "Enemy ships are trying to compensate," reported an officer. "They're firing their engines at full power." "Let them," Jake said. "Their engines aren't strong enough to fight the gravitational field we've created." On the screen, they could see the planet crusher changing course more and more. The Kreshtar fleet was directly in its path. "The enemy admiral is sending emergency signals," another officer reported. "He's ordering all ships to retreat." "Too late," Jake said quietly. "They can't move fast enough." The planet crusher, pulled by the gravity fields of thousands of human and Velthari ships, plowed directly into the heart of the Kreshtar fleet. The collision was visible from 3 star systems away, a brilliant flash of light as the planet crusher's weapons exploded along with hundreds of enemy warships. When the light faded, the main Kreshtar battle fleet was gone. The planet crusher was destroyed, and Centauri Prime was safe. The command center erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other and shouted with joy. Admiral Park had tears in her eyes. But Jake just sat quietly at his table, drawing a new picture in his notebook. This one showed the aftermath of the battle, scattered debris where the enemy fleet used to be. Zara sat beside her husband. Jake, do you realize what you just did? You saved 50 billion lives. You ended the war. Jake looked up from his drawing. I solved a puzzle, he said simply. A very large, very complex puzzle, but still just a puzzle. Is that all this was to you? A puzzle, Jake's expression. 1 month after the Great Battle, Zara and Jake stood together on the observation deck of their ship. Outside the windows, they could see something that had seemed impossible just weeks before. Human and Velthari ships working together to clean up the debris from the destroyed planet Crusher. The war was over. The Kreshtar had surrendered after losing their main fleet and their ultimate weapon. But more importantly, something new was happening. The cooperation between humans and Velthari had grown stronger during the crisis. Now they were talking about real partnership instead of just peace. The cleanup operation is going well, Zara said, watching salvaged ships collect valuable materials from the wreckage. It's more than cleanup, Jake replied. Look at how the crews are working together, humans and Velthari on the same ships sharing techniques and knowledge. Zara nodded. It was true. The joint operation had brought the two species closer together than anyone had expected. Is this what you planned too? Jake smiled. Not planned exactly, but I hoped for it. Emperor Velkanos had arrived that morning for a special ceremony. He wanted to personally honor Jake for his role in ending the war. Now the Emperor sat in the ship's main conference room, studying Jake's notebook with fascination. Young human, the Emperor said when Jake and Zara joined him, I have spent the morning reviewing your battle plans. I must ask, where did you really learn to think like this? Jake sat down across from the Emperor. I told everyone the truth, Your Majesty. I learned on a farming colony. But this level of strategic thinking, it's beyond what most military academies teach. Maybe that's because military academies focus on fighting, Jake said. On my world, we focused on building things, growing things, making complex systems work together for everyone's benefit. The Emperor looked puzzled. I don't understand the difference. Jake opened his notebook to a page showing what looked like a simple farm. But as he explained the drawing, it became clear that it was actually a complex diagram of resource management. On Green Valley, we didn't just grow food, Jake said. We had to understand weather patterns across 20 different star systems. We had to coordinate with mining operations, shipping companies, and planetary governments. We had to predict what people would need months or years in advance. And if you made mistakes, the Emperor asked, people went hungry. Entire planets could face famine if we got the logistics wrong. Admiral Park, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. So you learned to think about large-scale systems because failure meant suffering for millions of people. Exactly, Jake said. Military strategy is important, but it's focused on defeating enemies. Agricultural logistics is focused on supporting life. The thinking processes are similar, but the goals are different. Emperor Velkanos studied Jake with new respect. You're saying that humans develop strategic minds not through war, but through peace? Some of us do, Jake replied. Earth has many farming worlds like Green Valley. We produce food for hundreds of systems. The children who grow up there learn to think about complexity and interdependence from a very young age. Zara realized something important. Jake, when you first came to our wedding, you weren't just pretending to be simple. You really are a farmer, but you're also something more. I'm someone who learned that the most important problems aren't about destroying things, Jake said. They're about building things, creating systems that help people thrive instead of just survive. The Emperor leaned forward. Is this why your battle plan included provisions for sharing the debris from the planet Crusher? You weren't just thinking about military victory. Jake nodded. The wreckage contains rare materials that both our peoples need. Instead of fighting over it, we could use it to build better trade relationships. The cleanup operation is really a partnership-building exercise. Admiral Park laughed. You turned a battlefield into a construction project. Everything can be a construction project if you think about it the right way, Jake said. Over the following weeks, Jake's approach proved to be exactly right. The joint cleanup operation led to technology sharing agreements. The technology sharing led to cultural exchange programs. The cultural exchanges led to permanent cooperation treaties. But Zara wanted to understand her husband even better. One evening, she asked him to explain his notebook to her completely. Jake opened to the first page, the simple flower he had given her at their wedding. This was my first analysis of Velthari defensive formations, he said. I drew it as a flower so no one would think it was a military document. He flipped to the wedding picture. This showed how to create a perfect tactical encirclement. But it also showed something else, how two different groups could come together and create something beautiful. Page after page, Jake revealed the hidden meanings in his drawings. Every innocent sketch contained layers of analysis, military tactics, diplomatic strategies, economic models, and social observations. Jake, Zara said, you've been studying both our peoples since the day we met. I've been trying to understand how to help both our peoples, Jake corrected. There's a difference. What difference? Jake showed her his most recent drawing. It looked like a garden where different types of plants grew together. Studying something means taking it apart to see how it works. Understanding something means seeing how it can grow and change and become something better. And what do you see when you look at humans and Velthari together? I see two species that are stronger together than apart. Humans are good at seeing patterns and solving complex problems. Velthari are good at precise implementation and long-term thinking. Together we could build things that neither species could build alone. Zara looked at the garden drawing more carefully. Each plant in Jake's garden represented something different. Trade routes, research projects, exploration missions, artistic collaborations. You're not just talking about political cooperation, she realized. You're talking about creating a new kind of civilization. Why not? Jake asked. The war is over. We have a choice about what to build next. Emperor Velkanos had been thinking the same thing. When he met with Jake again, he made an unexpected offer. I want you to become an official advisor to both governments, the emperor said. Not just for military matters, but for long-term planning. Jake looked surprised. Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I'm not a politician or a diplomat. No, the emperor agreed. You're something better. You're someone who thinks about building instead of destroying. Both our peoples need that kind of thinking. Admiral Park supported the idea. Jake, your agricultural background gives you a unique perspective. You understand how to create systems that support life and growth. And your strategic mind means you can see problems before they become crises, added Zara. Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he opened his notebook to a blank page and began drawing. The new picture showed humans and Velthari working together on what looked like a massive construction project. What are you drawing? Zara asked. The future, Jake said. If we do this right, humans and Velthari won't just be allies, we'll be partners in something much bigger. What kind of partnership? Jake continued drawing. Exploration, research, building new worlds where both species can thrive. Maybe even contact with other civilizations, but this time as friends instead of conquerors. The emperor studied the drawing. You believe this is possible, I believe? It's inevitable, Jake said. The war taught us that we're stronger together. Peace will teach us what we can accomplish when we combine our different strengths. 6 months later, Jake's prediction proved correct. The Human Velthari Cooperative Council was established with Jake as its chief strategic advisor. The first joint missions were launched. Exploration ships crewed by both species, research stations studying questions that neither group could answer alone, and agricultural projects that fed people across dozens of worlds. Zara and Jake moved to a new ship designed by both human and Velthari engineers. It was beautiful in a way that neither species could have achieved alone, combining Velthari elegance with human practicality. On their first night aboard the new ship, Zara found Jake on the observation deck. drawing in his notebook as always. "What are you working on now?" she asked. Jake showed her the page. It was a picture of the two of them, but not as stick figures this time. This drawing showed them as they really were, two individuals from different worlds who had found a way to build something meaningful together. "Is this another strategic plan?" Zara asked. "No," Jake said. "This is just a picture of my wife. No hidden meanings, no secret tactics. Just Zara, who was brave enough to marry a stranger and wise enough to see past her first impressions." Zara looked at the drawing more carefully. It really was just a portrait, the first completely honest picture Jake had ever shown her. "I love you," she said. "Not because you're a strategic genius or because you ended a war. I love you because you see the best possibilities in everything, including me." Jake put down his pencil and took her hand. "When I first met you, I saw a princess who was doing her duty even though it made her unhappy. I wanted to find a way to give you reasons to smile. You did more than that. You gave me a future worth smiling about." They stood together looking out at the stars, watching ships from both their peoples working side by side. The war was truly over. The peace was just beginning.